Welcome back. During the 2-hour debate, 8 candidates went at it in Milwaukee last night. 4,000 people went to the stadium to watch the debate. The top topics involved Biden's economic plan, foreign policy, and border security. With that, I want to bring in Rice University political science professor Robert Stein. Professor Stein, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I know it was a late night for many folks last night.
Oh, yeah, and the Astros game went
right?
as well.
Which was a very interesting game. Okay, going back to the debate, we're going to focus on the debate for right now. During the debate, one of the big topics, as we know, border security, which is an ongoing issue for our state of Texas. In your opinion, how did the candidates respond when they were asked whether we should use the military to secure the southern border?
Well, I think Florida Governor DeSantis was probably the most outspoken. It was in the third segment of the debate when he was asked directly, would he use lethal force to pursue narco terrorists that were bringing fentanyl and other drugs into the country? And he said yes, he would not only use lethal force against these purveyors, smugglers, but I heard distinctively when asked, would he pursue or invade Mexico? He said yes, he felt that it was justified to pursue these narco terrorists across the U.S. border. That didn't get a lot of coverage, but it was probably the strongest statement. None of the other candidates called him on it, and of course raises some serious questions about foreign policy and international relations with Mexico. But he was quite strong on that. It wasn't a long discussion, but it was very clear, and he had said so earlier in the week that this was something he would use, lethal force.
Yeah, we don't have that specific soundbite, but we do have a soundbite from Senator Tim Scott talking about how issues at the border are connected with the fentanyl crisis, which you just mentioned. Let's listen in.
The most pressing need of the American people from a national security standpoint is our southern border. It has led to the death of 70,000 Americans because of fentanyl. Plus 6 million illegal crossings since President Biden has taken office, and 200 people on our national security watch list have been caught at our border. How many have not been caught at our southern border? If we just spend $10 billion, we could finish the wall. For $5 billion more, we could have the military-grade technology to surveil our southern border to stop the flow of fentanyl and save 70,000 Americans a year.
Professor Stein, do you think this resonated with voters? Will this have any impact on their decision?
That's very hard to say, and I think at this point it probably really speaks to an issue that Republicans are trying to build on, as our governor of Texas has been doing. He's been sending refugees, people who are coming across the border illegally, up to New York and Martha's Vineyard and in California. I think what the Republicans are trying to do is make the border issue a national issue. And I think what Senator Scott and clearly Governor DeSantis were trying to do is say, this isn't just a southern border issue. It's a drug issue that affects people who've been suffering from the opioid epidemic. So it's trying to broaden the issue beyond just, Texas, Florida, Arizona, New Mexico. And I thought Scott was probably more vocal on that. I think the governor of Florida simply wanted to show that he was going to take a very tough stance and go to the highest level of vigilance, which is lethal force.
I know former President Mike Pence also weighed in on this topic. We have his soundbite. Let's listen into this.
We secured the southern border of the United States of America and reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%. When Joe Biden took over, he threw open the southern border of the United States, and the wave of humanity, the wave of fentanyl that's been eloquently described here is a wave of human tragedy across this country. But Martha, you began this evening talking about who is best prepared to be the next president of the United States. And I have to tell you, with all humility, I was there when we negotiated through the government shutdown and got the funding available to build the wall. I was negotiating on Capitol Hill around the clock. I negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy on behalf of the President of the United States. And Asa, you're so right. It's because we used economic pressure to bring the Mexicans to the table, and they allowed us to have people wait in Mexico while they applied for asylum. It ended asylum abuse overnight. We got the Mexicans to deploy their National Guard to their southern border and to our southern border as never before. And I want to promise you, as President of the United States of America, I will engage Mexico the exact same way, and we will partner with the Mexican military, and we will hunt down and destroy the cartels that are claiming.
Professor Stein, thoughts on the former vice president's remarks?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Your thoughts on, I'm not sure if you were able to hear former Vice President Michael Pence just speaking. Any thoughts on his remarks just now?
I'm sorry, I can't hear. I couldn't hear either the I heard the vice president. And again, to your question about the border, I think what the vice president was doing was, of course, clearly trying to separate himself from the problem,
right,
tie it to Biden. No one mentioned the fact that, these are federal laws that only Congress can change.
Yeah.
Building walls, protecting the borders is an act of Congress, not necessarily an act of a governor. And particularly in the case, these are people who are coming across the border, and they're, of course, looking for asylum. And we have laws that allow people to seek asylum. So the real problem here is not so much that these people are coming across the border, is whether or not their motivation and what their countries are doing to drive them away is something that we can deal with in terms of foreign policy.
Yeah, a common theme throughout the night from former Vice President Mike Pence was that he was trying to separate himself from the pack, talking a lot about his experience, his qualifications. Do you think he managed to do that? Do you think he resonated with the crowd, with people watching last night on doing just that, separating himself from the other candidates?
I don't think. I think the candidate that won last night wasn't there, and that was, of course, Donald Trump. All the candidates, but I think two, Christie and Hutchinson, said they would support Donald Trump if he were the nominee. Several said they would support him even if he were convicted of any of these alleged felonies. I thought none of the candidates other than Ramaswamy probably gained any attention, and that was because he was the candidate that came closest to Donald Trump. He said everything that Donald Trump would have said, as well as I'm the best candidate. And in fact, I think Ramaswamy practically endorsed Donald Trump. I thought the surprise was Governor DeSantis. He just wasn't a factor in the debate. I think he expected to be the object of a lot of criticism and attack from the other candidates, and he simply was almost ignored. Ramaswamy, of course, got attacked by everybody, Christie, Haley, Pence, even DeSantis. But I think the problem here is that the audience, not only at the Milwaukee Arena, where the convention will be held next year, but more importantly, I think the audience for Fox News was overwhelmingly Trump supporters. So you heard a lot of raucous booing and heckling when anybody said anything that even remotely not only criticized the president, President Trump, but actually suggested that his policies were not acceptable. One of the things I thought was also interesting, this really highlights some of the real rifts within the party on foreign policy, on abortion. Those are the two big ones. Former Ambassador Haley, I think, showed that the abortion issue is going to be a continuing problem. Governor DeSantis wouldn't take a position on a federal ban. Some of the lesser candidates like Hutchinson and Burgum said no to that. But the simple fact of the matter is that's a big issue for Republican primary voters and will be in the general election. I think, again, the big winner here, Donald Trump, and he didn't even have to be on the stage, which tells me he won't be there again at the end of September.
In California,
this is going to be a fight among the sort of what I call undercard, the also-rans, the warm-up bands. It's possible Donald Trump won't get the nomination, but at this point, it's very hard to see that he's going to be denied it, barring some, catastrophic event like being in jail. And I should say here, that doesn't stop you from running for president.
Yeah, and we'll be watching that very closely. I know you're right. He was not there on the stage last night, but he was on X. He was on formerly known as Twitter, sitting down with Carlson for a sit-down interview. Professor Stein, we so much appreciate your time. You're welcome back here anytime you want. We appreciate your perspective this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, sir. It is 8:42 on our Thursday morning. Again, we are waiting for former President Trump to appear at the Fulton County Jail. This is a live look outside that facility, as Professor Stein just mentioned time after time. Some people calling him the winner of last night's debate without him even making an appearance on the stage. As we heard moments ago from reporter Bree Jackson, who is live for us in Atlanta, we are expecting to see a mugshot of former President Trump later today when he surrenders to authorities. This is something we will continue to keep a close eye on throughout the day and bring you the very latest right here on KPRC 2+.